How hard can moving to Australia really be? When we moved to Australia, we moved over with such enthusiasm. We were just so excited to start our new life here. And it's a whole 8 years ago now, because it was back in 2016 that we moved.
It was like watching some balls in a china shop.
We actually went at everything like a bull in a china shop. In the lead up to migrating, all we could think about was Australia, and it becomes an obsession.
Morning till night, that's all you're thinking about is the move. You're watching it constantly on TV, research it online, and just talking to every single person that will listen.
And you know you're doing it and you don't mean to, and you don't want to annoy everybody, but you do it anyway.
Oh, I quite enjoyed it sometimes.
Oh, okay. But what also happens is, because you're at the hands of the Department of Immigration and you have to wait for your visa, you end up in a really weird state of living, which is the limbo state. And that's where you can't do anything in your old life because you're waiting for the visa, but you can't start your new life because you're waiting for the visa. And so you end up just kind of waiting.
It's what us English do best.
That's probably one of the hardest parts of immigration, having your life in the hands of someone who doesn't know you and doesn't care about you.
Especially for people like us, because we're very impatient.
Yeah, we can't wait for anything. We couldn't even wait to make this video for you.
Got some cheese to go on that.
When we first moved, we moved into this 3-bedroom small unit on a holiday resort. And it was pretty pokey, but it had a pool, it had a barbecue, like communal ones, and it was also a couple of minutes walk away from the beach, which was pretty nice. Because it was a holiday let usually, they had everything in it. So all of the bedding, the utensils, the furniture, which came in pretty handy because it meant that we didn't have to buy those things straight away, but also we didn't need to buy them for our rental and then move them a few months down the line. I think we got pretty lucky renting that place. Although it was small, it did us a lot of favours. Our first impressions of living on the Sunshine Coast when we first arrived were really good. We got to drive along David Low Way every day, which is stunning, isn't it? It's insanely beautiful.
Yeah, it's a beautiful coastal road. All the way from Markula up to Noosa. It's much better than when I used to travel with the M25.
David Low Way, better than the M25. There you go, that's his tagline. We really loved how chilled everything felt. So the barbecues, the beach lifestyle, the swimming at the pool, it just all became the norm straight away. But we did come across some challenges, just like every expat does. This isn't just us, this is an every expat issue. We all have our problems. It does not mean that we don't love it here. It's just the reality. The reality of moving to a new country is that it is not easy.
The thing is, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it.
I'm gonna be honest with you here. I am not one for ironing out the details before I jump into something. If we really want something, we tend to jump in head first. Or is it feet first?
Feet first.
We jump in feet first, not head first, because that would be stupid. We jump in feet first, and then we work out everything as we go along. So anything that comes and gets thrown our way, we just work it out on the spot.
Yeah, otherwise you'll be sitting there for too long thinking about things and getting scared about things.
I know that's not how the sensible people do things, but that's how we do things.
It's the Bahamian way.
I like that. So the first problem that we got hit with was childcare, because believe it or not, we didn't think that through. We had a 10-year-old, a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old at the time. We needed childcare so that both of us could go to work. We hadn't pre-thought how that would work. We took them to a nursery to go and have a look around. I think it was, at the time, it was about $100 per day per child, which $200 for our kids that were out of school. To be honest, it just wasn't viable. Oh, the other point to this is that because of the visa we were on at the time, we weren't entitled to any help with childcare. We couldn't just give up at the first hurdle. So What we did, we found out that the English colleges had this program where they had international students coming to stay. They would go and stay with host families, and some of them, in return for staying with the host family, would give you 20 hours of childcare. But remember, we were living in a 3-bedroom tiny unit. Now we had to give our student one of the bedrooms. So therefore, there were 5 of us now crammed into 2 small bedrooms. But you do what you do and you make it work. That was how we dealt with childcare. It was a problem, we worked it out because that's what we do. The next issue that we faced was friendships. I can't stress enough how much landing in a new country and not knowing anyone is pretty tricky, and you can make friends easily. It's really easy, isn't it?
It is very easy.
It's easy enough to make friends. You can make friends by speaking to people on Facebook groups, social media. You can make friends by knocking on people's doors like I did. That sounds a bit weird, doesn't it?
It is a bit weird.
Yeah, 8 years on, that sounds weird, but that's what I did. It seemed like a really, really good idea at the time. But what I came to say was, just because you make friends to begin with doesn't mean that these are going to be your people. I think it's fair to say for many expats that friends come and go to begin with. It does take a while to find your people. You can make friends or acquaintances easily, but finding your people, the right people for you, takes a little bit longer. As we mentioned, when we first arrived, it was 8 years ago. So things are very different now, but when we first arrived, work was not easy to come by. So I had managed to get myself a job. However, Ben found it a little bit trickier because there weren't so many jobs going. We noticed that it was a case of it's who you know. That was a massive factor. But things have changed now, but that was certainly for us. When we were new expats 8 years ago, it certainly wasn't as easy as we thought it was going to be. We also hadn't sold our house in the UK because, as I mentioned, we don't think things through before we do something. We had to wait 5 months to buy a house here. Our money was tied up in the UK, so we had to be quite frugal when we first arrived. I think with any new expat, you get financially battered. Not only have you just paid out for your visas, your flights, your accommodation, your hire cars, all of the beginning stuff, but to have to then set up a whole new life for yourself, it really burns through some cash. And there are people that do it on a lot less, but even those people have still burnt through cash to get there. That's a difficulty that a lot of new expats face. We're no exception to that. I think there are ways to do things if you've got less cash, so don't let that scare you off for now. We can talk about that another time.
Another video.
One of the bigger problems that we personally had, and this won't affect anyone who's moving now, is that before our house sold in the UK, whilst we were in Australia, Brexit happened. All of a sudden, the value of the pound just dropped. And so we lost a hell of a lot of money when we were finally able to send our house sale money over. That was absolutely gutting. Hopefully you won't encounter any problems like that where the value just drops. I think that was like a crazy event, but it did stuff us. It is what it is. These things happen. There's nothing you can do about it, so there's no point in getting upset. You just have to...
Anywho.
Yeah, just anywho it. It took us around 3 years to really feel settled. That initial 3 years is just so much harder than you think it's going to be. I would say 3 years is what it took for us. Finally feel a bit more financially good again, to feel like our friendships were good, to feel like everything wasn't so chaotic. So in 2019, we went through what every expat dreads, which was Ben's mum passing away suddenly. It's something that's on a lot of people's mind when they think of moving to Australia, because they think, what if something happens to my family? My thoughts on it, and we'll check with you in a sec, my thoughts on it are, from experiencing it, I don't think it would have been any better if we'd have been there. It was horrific, but I think it would also have been equally horrific had we been in the UK when it happened.
It's probably worse being here.
Oh, you do think that? Okay.
Because then you've got the long flight back, because you can't sit on the plane grieving. You just have to
So you're having to hold your emotions in for the flight. Yeah, but do you think you'd have had the same awful feelings as you did in the UK?
I don't know, it's hard to tell.
From experiencing it for myself, I think it's just as horrible. It was horrific being here, but it would have been horrific being there too. I guess that's everybody's a bit different when it comes to that, aren't they? 8 years in, the Sunshine Coast isn't what we moved to. So when we moved here, it was very different. There were a lot less people. It wasn't quite so developed.
No, it's grown so quick, so fast.
2020, obviously, COVID hit. Everybody wanted to move to Queensland. Understandably, to the Sunshine Coast, understandably. The population rose significantly. So did the cost of living, the house prices, everything just jumped up. But anywho, despite the difficulties and hardships that we've faced, would you do it again?
Yeah.
If you are moving to Australia, then have a look in the description. We've got a little freebie for you. It's a checklist. It details all the things you're going to need to do on your arrival. So head into the description and you can download that for free.
And also you can check our Facebook group.
Oh yes, Expats Down Under.
You can also make friends that way as well.
That's our community group, so you can go on there, share your wins, share your things that are going wrong as well, and just have a chat with each other and get to know each other.
We'll see you there.